Hello, guys. Welcome to the first episode of the mistakes I made in my marriage, in the early years of my marriage. Yeah, I promised to make a couple of videos on mistakes I made in the early days of my marriage with the intention that you who is newlywed, you who is planning to marry someday, or you who will soon be married will learn a few things and probably not make the same mistakes, or at least be aware beforehand that some certain actions that you take might produce probably some undesirable results, and then you may take precautions. I will talk about the first mistake. My first mistake was to start my marriage with a large family. When I talk of starting my marriage with a large family, I mean starting your marriage, instead of starting your marriage just two of you, you and your husband, you and your beloved, you start your marriage with a couple of persons, many children whom you are either taking care of or living with already in your home. In African community, generally, particularly in Cameroon, we have the tendency that when someone marries, you send children to go and live for them. Sometimes the child is given as a gift to the newlywed. Maybe a young girl or a young boy is given as a gift to the newlywed for them to start staying together and they could run a few errands. It's a good thing, okay? It's a good thing. However, there is also the tendency that sometimes, depending on the kind of family you're coming from, you start to live with your younger brothers, your younger sisters, or that of your spouse, and your house is full during the first few years of your marriage, say first 3 years of your marriage. What happens is that during this period, you turn to spend more financially. You start to carry a certain financial load, a financial burden, material burden as well, which should not have been imputed on you during the early days of your marriage. The early days of your marriage, early years of your marriage is a period for you to consolidate your relationship and to plan financially on how your future will look like. All right, after the wedding, the ceremony, the bride price praying and all that, it has been a heavy tone of finance that has been spent by your husband or both, because sometimes you may find yourself maybe as a woman maybe contributing in a couple of things to make the wedding proper go smoothly. Now you find yourself in a situation where you spend huge sums of money, and then when you start having these large financial burdens, financial obligations, I say financial obligations because you have to maybe say pay fees, you have to now live in a larger house, you have to now the amount of food you have to cook daily, and at the end of the day, the monthly expense, the light bills and the water bills, all of that becomes really huge comparatively to your stamina as far as the age of your marriage is concerned. So I would always advise that during the early days of your marriage, stay just two of you, just the two of you, and then plan, recover from from the financial load you had already borne during the very early during the marriage ceremony, the bride price paying, and then all that. Recover from it, make plans, rebuild before you can now start to increase your family size. Now, the second thing that happens to your couple if you start to live with many people at the same time early on in your marriage is that you do not get the time to consolidate your intimacy. You don't get enough time to consolidate your intimacy. Why do I say so? Probably the man works and maybe the woman works, or maybe if the woman doesn't work, she has to stay home and her husband goes to work and he returns, right? Now you have just a few hours of 24 hours because they have to step out normally during the day, and then when they return, this is the period when you're getting to know each other. This is the period when you get to discover each other's faults. You get to discover each other's weaknesses. You start to realize that he doesn't make up the bed when he wakes up, or you start to realize that he litters things around, or you start to realize that maybe her food is not that good, and now it starts to trigger you and you're struggling to adjust. All right, these triggers turn to push you to say maybe talk loud, or maybe produce some resentment behavior and all that in an atmosphere wherein there are other people. In that atmosphere wherein there are other people, you cannot really express yourself that much, and it's tiring. You know, when you have a large family, right? When you're taking care of children, I mean, you've had the experience, or maybe you've lived in a large family. Sometimes it's exhausting to the woman as well as to the man. To the man, probably to financial burdens, and to the woman as far as whole household responsibilities are concerned. Now, you do not get the time to be able to have moments of intimacy together. I'm not talking about sex. I'm not talking about copulation. I'm talking about times where you get to laugh together. You get to talk to your spouse without being afraid that someone is hearing you. You get to chit chat. You get to cuddle on the sofa. You get to do some certain things around the house to build a strong bond in the early years of your marriage. What happens is that you, because of the presence of other people, you get to limit the things that you can do, say in public, or maybe in the parlor, or in the kitchen, or in the surrounding, because you're protecting the children. Now you become conscious of other people. Okay, I'll probably say in the other room, you can't scream loud because there are children at home and all of that. So to me, I think that during the early years of your marriage, when you miss that period of intimacy, that period where you're just the two of you, where you get to scrub on each other, you get to, the friction between you both, and then you get to fix it, even as it said, iron sharpened iron, without being scared that somebody will hear you, without being keeping yourself because you're trying to protect some other person. It's a very good thing. So for me, I would advise that during the early years of your marriage, say the first 3 years or the first 5 years, you should stay just the two of you, or with just your immediate family if you've started having children. I'm not saying that helping your family is bad. That's not what I'm saying. Please don't get me wrong. Helping your family is good. You can help from a distance. But that early years of your marriage, spend it together. Spend it together, or with just your immediate family. Because of course, how many children can you give birth in 3 years or in 5 years? So spend the early years of your marriage just the two of you, or with just your immediate family. Hope you learned something from this video. See you in our next video. Bye bye.